What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is the third part of my top 100 films of all time. Part 1 was where I talked about my 1 to 25. Part 2 was me talking about my number 26 to 50. And part 3, aka this video, will be me talking about my number 51 to 75. I'm very excited to give you guys this video, and this is going to be interesting in that the way I'm going to be going about this is I'm going to be going from 75 all the way to 51, and then the video will end. Do be on the lookout for part 4. Part 4 will be coming out probably a month after this, I would say, and that's going to be 76 to 100. Now, goes without saying, but this list is going to be different than yours. And that's the nice thing about film. Film is subjective, and I'm very curious to look at your guys' lists down below, whether it be your top 25, top 50, top 75, top 100, whatever the case may be. I'm very curious to look at your guys' lists down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started with talking about my top 51 to 75. Now, so kicking things off, my number 75, we have Pulp Fiction. That's right. Pulp Fiction, I think, is a masterpiece, though it wasn't always the case. I first saw this film almost a decade ago, and I thought it was good, but I didn't love it. In fact, this was, I think it was number 248 or 249. It was like right next to Apocalypse Now. That's right, just to give you an idea how much my views change on this film. But it's gone up the ranks, and here we are. It's now my number 75. I think that it is a fantastic film. The nonlinear storytelling, the characters, the dialogue, the twists and turns. It has everything you can want in a film. It's fresh, it's invigorating, it's original. It's everything a film buff could want. I love this film, and what's also nice is that many people are aware of this film, and many people seem to love it just as much as me. So yeah, Pulp Fiction, it's my number 75. Next up, my number 74. That's right, you betcha, my number 74 is Fargo. So Fargo is an incredible film. It is a lean, mean 98-minute runtime, I believe, and the Coen brothers did an incredible job directing this film. Incredible characters, incredible dialogue. The humor is so funny, in my opinion, of course. But there's just so many scenes that stand out. Would you ever seen anyone? That scene is just, it's a hoot and a half. Steve Buscemi did a great job. Frances McDormand. The cast is elite. They're amazing. What's also great is that this film actually inspired the TV show Fargo. And a good companion piece is Fargo Season 1 in particular. It's a nice little tie-in with, this and the events of this. I would highly recommend you check out Fargo Season 1 and 2 in particular, but the film, the one that, gave birth and is what started that TV show in the first place, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And that's why Fargo is my number 74. Next up, my number 73, we have The Departed. Yeah, The Departed is, it also, similar to like Pulp Fiction, it's interesting how my relationship changed quite a bit. Like Fargo, when I first saw it, I loved it immediately. But The Departed, I just thought it was solid, but I just couldn't get it out of my head, and I came about rewatching it multiple times over the years, and each rewatch, I find myself loving it more and more. And at this point in time, the last two viewings, I've given it a 5 out of 5. I wouldn't change a thing about this film. It gets better upon multiple viewings. And what's also nice is that it's 2.5 hours, but it feels like 2 hours. It flies by. The pacing is perfect. The cast is incredible. Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg. I mean, you look at this cast, it's stacked, and they all are pulling their weight. What I also really appreciate is the ending is like a gut punch. It's a beautiful twist ending that I think is quite effective. But more importantly, this is Scorsese firing on all cylinders. Incredible filmmaking. And what's also interesting is that it's not even my favorite film of 2006, but I am glad it won Best Picture in that year. So yeah, if you for some reason haven't watched The Departed yet, highly recommend you watch it. Also, I'm really hoping that we get a 4K release of it because it deserves it. It looks good on Blu-ray, but I know it will be stellar on 4K. But yeah, The Departed, it's my number 73. Next up, my number 72, it's also an Academy Award Best Picture winner, and that is Gladiator. So Gladiator, I've seen both the theatrical cut and the extended cut, and I would say both are incredible. But I will say this, I do come back to the extended cut more often than not. I like the fleshing out that the extra, I believe it's 20 minutes, add to the characters, the development of such, the pacing. I just think it flows much better. And additionally, I also just have to say this. Russell Crowe's lead performance, holy cow, it's incredible. Joaquin Phoenix gives a stellar supporting role. What's also great is that Gladiator, similar to, don't get me wrong, other films of this nature, like the sword and sandal genre, Gladiator, though, in particular, had a huge influence on the TV show Game of Thrones, which is one of my favorite TV shows. And you can see it. Watching Gladiator, it's just an incredible experience, man. I know that it has its detractors for sure, but I personally love this. I love the combination of practical effects with CGI. I think it's seamless, and I think especially on 4K, it just looks incredible. Hans Zimmer gives one of his best scores, so much so that the score is so great that they decided to reuse it for Pirates of the Caribbean and Curse of Black Pearl with Jack Sparrow's theme. It's an incredible score. It really is. And I think that what's also nice about Gladiator is that the ending is both sad but also emotionally rewarding. And I think that if you've been sleeping on this film because it's an action film, because if for some reason you don't like action, I would still recommend you watch this because the drama in this is quite effective. And it's a great combination of the two, both drama and action. And yeah, that's why I love Gladiator. So yeah, that was my number 72. My number 71, I think I'm going to mispronounce it, and I apologize in advance, but my number 71 is Harakiri. So this is a film that, interestingly enough, I actually blind bought it for a Criterion sale. The reason why I blind bought it was because on Letterboxd, I saw how beloved this film was, so I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to buy it because of that. And then also the cover just looked cool, and also the premise seemed interesting enough. And I gotta say, the first 10 minutes, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh no, am I not gonna like this? Because first 10 minutes, I was like, how is this film gonna be over 2 hours? How? And the film kept going, and it got better and better and better. And I saw it a second time, and the second time, I think I liked it even more. The second time I watched with friends, and it was interesting to see how they reacted, because they reacted similarly to me, where it's like, how is this film gonna sustain interest for 2+ hours when the first 10 minutes, it's like, okay, so here we go. But there's so many good twists and turns. I think the cinematography is jaw-dropping. The score, production design, there is a lot to appreciate about this film. And from a storytelling perspective, it's so rich. I can see myself watching it many more times. It's why it's one of my favorite films, and it's why I'm so happy I blind bought this, because otherwise, I don't know if I would have gotten around to watching it by now. So very happy for that. Letterboxd users, thank you very much. But yeah, it's my number 71. Next up, my number 70, we have Mad Max Fury Road. What a film. What a film. Combining art house tendencies in terms of really emphasizing visual storytelling, as well as emphasizing silent film kind of filmmaking, combined also with blockbuster filmmaking, and you have something of a very special concoction. This is a great film, a fantastic action film, a spectacle on a level at which we haven't seen before. I really do think that Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best action films, and one of the best films of the 2010s in general, and as you can see, one of my favorite films. I saw this, I believe it was like 4 times in theaters, and I've seen it many more times since. It's a fantastic film, man. I really do think it's great. I know some people are like, oh, well, there's like no plotting, and it's like, well, it's not that there's no plotting, it's that there is plotting. It's just that it's not one of those things where there is like a lot going on in terms of the dialogue. So if you're just paying attention to the dialogue, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed. But if you actually pay attention to the visuals, which is what film is, it is a visual medium, then you'll see that this is a very rich experience with incredible storytelling, incredible world building, and just an overall fantastic feast for the eyes and ears. And yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, I love it. Hopefully, if you haven't seen it before, what are you waiting for? Watch it already, because I would highly recommend it. And yeah, that's why it's my number 70. Next up, my number 69, we have The Graduate. I love The Graduate. It's funny because the first time I saw it, almost a decade ago, I thought it was good, but I didn't love it. And interestingly enough, I had to watch it in college for my one film class, and I decided to write a paper on it. And I liked it even better. And each viewing since then, I just find myself loving it more and more. And I'm at the point now where I just think it's an incredible experience. And I can't help but think about that ending in particular, and just how emotional it is. You know, it's something that is ambiguous, but it's, at the same time, that ambiguous nature is something that really hits home what these characters are going through, and the themes and messages are so impactful with that ending scene. They all come together, and I just think overall it's a very good film in terms of blending both comedy, drama, coming of age. It's a really effective film. The filmmaking is just outstanding. The soundtrack, I'm usually more of a film score individual, but I do have to say this has one of the best soundtracks ever made. And yeah, I love The Graduate, and would highly recommend it, and that's why it's my number 69. And next up, we have my number 68, which is Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. So, interestingly enough, this film at one point was actually my favorite film of all time. Clearly, it's gone down quite a bit, but I still absolutely love this film, and I can definitely see why many people have this in their top 10 and why on IMDb it's in, I believe, their top 10. I get it, because this film is a feat of filmmaking. It's epic in its scope, but at the same time, very personal. I mean, every time I watch this film, it brings me close to tears, and sometimes it does bring me to tears because these characters and the journey that they've gone through and the arcs are just so satisfying. Howard Shore's score is incredible. I love the visual effects, production design. I just have so much love for this film. And I'll also say this, even though the other two, spoiler alert, aren't in my top 100, I do absolutely love The Two Towers, and I do absolutely adore Fellowship of the Ring. Fellowship of the Ring actually has the highest rating of the three, but I do love Return of the King a bit more, if that makes sense. Might not for some, but it does to me. But I absolutely love Lord of the Rings Return of the King. I think it's an incredible conclusion to the trilogy, and yeah, it's a great film. That's why it's my number 68. Next up, my number 67, we have Psycho. So Psycho, I do own the Steelbook on Blu-ray, but I wanted to showcase my Alfred Hitchcock collection, where I do own Psycho on 4K. First of all, Psycho on 4K, amazing. What a film. But this is also a film that I really respect for its ambition, especially for its time period, but also just how subtle a lot of the things are that's going on in the film. How there's so much emphasizing of visual storytelling, characters doing things that make sense, and us as viewers, we understand why they do the things that they do, but you just can't help at the same time still be frustrated because it's like, oh, no, I see why you're doing that, but no, don't do that. And I just love that. I think it's a really smart horror film, honestly. And at the same time, yeah, it's horror, but I also think the drama aspect is really, really well done. It's got a great score, very iconic, of course. Love, love, love the makeup, the costume design, cinematography. Everything about this film works, in my opinion, except one thing, which I do want to briefly mention. I love the ending, the actual twist ending, but I will say after the twist ending, they do have this unfortunate exposition dump that just doesn't really quite work for me. And I do take 0.25 stars off for it. But I still absolutely love this film. Obviously, it's why it's my number 67. But I did want to mention that because I do think that for its time, it made sense why they had that exposition dump. But now it just feels something that's tacked on and not necessary. But still, Psycho, incredible film. If you have been sleeping on it, highly recommend you watch it. But at all costs, avoid the remake because the remake, absolutely terrible. But Psycho, incredible. But yeah, it's my number 67. Next up, we have my number 66. My favorite Martin Scorsese film, we have Raging Bull. So Raging Bull, first of all, 4K Criterion, highly recommend you watch it on such. It looks amazing. It looks and sounds amazing. It is an incredible sports film, but more importantly, it's a sports film, but it's also not a sports film. It's a sports film that has very little in the sports area and more so in the fact of drama, in particular family drama. And holy cow, the family drama is so well done. You have Joe Pesci, you have Robert De Niro giving incredible performances, chewing up the dialogue, the cinematography, the black and white, just, it's incredible. I absolutely loved also the soundtrack. I think that Scorsese knows how to utilize a soundtrack to be quite effective and to match the imagery perfectly. And Raging Bull, it's an incredible film. Not easy to watch, though. I will say that is one thing about this film that for many might have it be where for many it's just a one-time viewing experience, but it's hard to watch, but I also do think that it's a necessity to watch at least once because it is an incredible film. And again, I think that what Robert De Niro does, what Joe Pesci does, and in particular what Scorsese does together in this film is just outstanding. And yeah, that's why it's my number 66. Next up, my number 65. I do not own this, unfortunately, and I'll explain in a bit why, but my number 65 is JFK. So JFK, I technically own on digital. Like I have a digital copy that I bought because I had like an Apple gift card. So I was like, oh, I'll just buy the digital code. The reason why I do that, I know I'm a physical media collector. The reason why I'm doing that is because it's a way of me holding off from buying the Blu-ray, which is very, very overpriced at this point, and me hoping, crossing my fingers, that JFK does in fact get a 4K release because I absolutely love this film. I think it's an incredible film. Yeah, is it 100% true? No, it's not even close. But the fact that Oliver Stone's able to garner a conspiracy theory and make you by the end be like, it could have happened, is a feat of incredible filmmaking and directing in particular. Also, the acting Gary Oldman does a fantastic job. I also think Kevin Costner, this might be his best performance. I really think everything about this film works. John Williams' score, the cinematography, the usages of different film stocks, everything works. And what's especially impressive is that this film is over 3 hours, but I never once felt the length. It is an incredible, incredible film. If you've been sleeping on this film, watch it. It is an incredible film, and that's why it is my number 65. Next up, my number 64, we have Drive. Drive, what can I say? This is a film that is an art house film through and through thick, and what an art house film it is. But here's the thing, it's done by a studio, and so they had to advertise it as an action film, when it really isn't. It's more of like a romance drama, an art house film, and at the same time, it does have a couple chases, and those chases are, yes, incredibly well done. But this is definitely a character study first and foremost, and a character study in which the character doesn't do much talking. So for many, that might be off-putting. But for me, I found it so fascinating, man. And I absolutely love the soundtrack in this film, combined with Cliff Martinez' score. Cinematography is just incredible. I think Ryan Gosling gave a killer performance. So much to love about this film. What's also great is that it's very short. It's only like 100 minutes long, but it flies by. And I just find myself rewatching it many, many times. And there'll be many more times in the future. Hoping it gets a 4K release in the US. Who knows at this point? But for now, I'm glad I own it on Blu-ray. And yeah, absolutely love Driving. That's why it's my number 64. Next up, my number 63. We have it again. A film that I don't know if it's going to be, but should. My number 63 is All the President's Men. So All the President's Men I saw probably around 9 years ago, and I thought it was good, but I truthfully thought it was quite slow. But earlier this year, in preparation for The White House Plumbers, I decided to rewatch it on HBO Max, or I guess now it's called Max. And I absolutely fell in love with All the President's Men. I thought that it was a masterpiece. It was one of those situations where I watched it and I was like, wow, I was wrong for giving this like a 4 out of 5. This, I see now why this is such a beloved film. This is easily a 5 out of 5. Easiest 5 out of 5 this year I've been able to give. What's especially impressive is the writing, the characters, the acting. It's just all so good. There's one scene where Robert Redford has to, call a bunch of people. It's like an 8-minute long take, and it's stellar. This is a film that makes journalism just really leap off the screen in such a way that is engrossing. Similar to Spotlight. I do like Spotlight more, but All the President's Men, I see why many people have this as their favorite journalist film. I know that there's a Blu-ray release, and I am going back and forth, and if I'm going to pick it up. Part of me says to wait because I do think that there is a good chance that this will, get a 4K release on physical media. Hoping, fingers crossed, similar to JFK. But yeah, that's why it's my number 63. Next up, my number 62, a good example of how a sequel can actually be great. And my number 62 is Blade Runner 2049. What a film. What a film. Nearly 3 hours in length, but never feeling the length because every single frame is just immaculate. Every single story beat is just so emotional. Every single element of this film works. I love Blade Runner. And if you've seen my top 1 to 25 list, you'll know that Blade Runner is in my top 25. But man, oh man, Blade Runner 2049, it's almost like picking a favorite kid. Like, it's hard to do. It really is. Because, again, I do love Blade Runner 2049. I was worried when it was, about to come out in 2017. But after I saw it, and I've seen it many times since, we're in good hands. Denis Villeneuve did an incredible job directing this film. Everyone involved should be proud because what an incredible film this is. And yeah, that's why it's my number 62. And next up, we have my number 61, which is No Country for Old Men. Looks great on Blu-ray, sounds great on Blu-ray, but still, I do very much so hope that it does get a 4K release because what an incredible film. What a picture. This is a film that has pretty much no score. Like, I think there's like 5 minutes worth of score, and I believe that's in the end credits, but it's still able to garner so much suspense through Roger Deakins' cinematography, through the Coen brothers directing. The Coen brothers, you wouldn't think that they'd be able to do such a great dark film, but this film, it's very, very dark. Not only just literally in terms of the lighting, but the content. This is a film that plunges you into the depths of hell, and my goodness, it is quite an experience. Philosophically deep, a film that is very rich in terms of its presence, of just really being able to grip us as viewers. This is a film that is one of the best thrillers, just one of my favorite films in general, and an ending that every time I watch it, I find myself loving more and more. Please watch No Country for Old Men if you haven't done so already. It is a great film. That's why it is my number 61. Next up, my number 60, on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a very uplifting film. Very, very uplifting. My number 60 is The Shawshank Redemption. This film is incredible in 4K. But not only that, it's a film that does a great job of having a setup as to where you as an audience member think that you're in for a very sad and dour type experience. But as the film progresses, you slowly start to gain hope, just like the character. And no spoilers, but by the end, you just can't help but have tears of joy, man. Like, it is one of the most uplifting films that you will see probably in some time, because it just does such a great job of having such an emotional payoff. I love this film, man. I really do. I love the dynamic of these two characters, Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins' characters. But I also absolutely love the themes of friendship and what they depict. I think that it's really handled well. And yeah, I absolutely love The Shawshank Redemption. That's why it's my number 60. And next up, we have my number 59, which is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I first saw right after I got out of high school. And I liked it. I thought it was good, but I also made the mistake of watching it at like 2 a.m., so it was kind of hard to follow. But I then watched it again, and I liked it more. And then I watched it with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And I loved it even more. And it's funny because now when I watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's with my wife. And it's a nice kind of happy middle for us because she likes the more happy romances, which I definitely respect. And me, I'm more into like the dour, serious-minded ones, such as like Her, Lost in Translation, and this. But here's the thing. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, yeah, it's very serious. Yeah, it's dour and everything. But it also leaves hope at the end. And I think that hope is something that finds a nice middle ground between people that like romances in different kind of lengths. Someone that likes one that's more happy versus me, someone that likes it more serious. And I just think that this does such a great job of balancing those two. And I think that Kaufman's writing here is just so human. I think that he hits so many different levels. Honestly, like I can't help but get emotional with this film, man. I really do think that he taps into something with me that I can't help but sit here and say it's great. Also, I mean, Kate Winslet's one of my favorite actresses, and her performance here is so raw. And Jim Carrey also just delivers such an impactful performance. I just think that everything about this film works. And it's also a film that it's so quirky, it's so weird, but it also has mainstream appeal, which is nice because I like being able to, tell people, hey, you should watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's odd, but I think that you'll be able to relate to it because it does such a great job of honing in on audiences in a way that it has universal themes that I just think are so handled well in this film. And yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, highest recommendation, and that's why it is my number 59. Next up, my number 58. I mean, it goes without saying, I'm not really gonna have to say that much about this, but my number 58 is The Dark Knight. Yeah, I love The Dark Knight. Sue me. I think The Dark Knight is the best superhero film. I don't know if we'll get one that's better, at least in my lifetime. It gets everything right. There are some people that claim that this film, without Heath Ledger, would just be okay. I disagree with that sentiment. I think that the filmmaking is incredible, and I think that Heath Ledger's performance is incredible as well, for sure. But I think that it's the perfect melding of Heath Ledger's performance with incredible filmmaking and a story that is epic in scope, but also very personal with these characters. And I think that the overall themes and messages of this film and what the ending has to say about them, in particular with hitting them home, just works so well. I love the ending. The ending gives me goosebumps every time. And I love The Dark Knight Rises, I do. But if this was, the ending of that franchise, like The Dark Knight, I would have been fine with that because I just think that it does such a great job. And yeah, that's my number 58. Next up, my number 57. I've only seen this twice, but second viewing, it just was a very, very great experience. And my number 57 is Barry Lyndon. Yeah, this is a Stanley Kubrick film, and it's 3 hours and 5 minutes, which is, it's long. Yeah, it is, but it's also an absorbing film. And I think that if you're in the right mindset for a period piece, you'll find yourself really being fascinated with everything that you see on screen with this film. The production design, the costume design, the makeup, it's impeccable. It really is. And I will say this, that the lead character is quote-unquote not likable, but I think that it's a great character study in that not every character you're going to see on screen is going to be likable. Just like in real life, not every character is going to be likable. So I really give props to Stanley Kubrick for tackling a character and having a character study on someone that isn't likable. And I think that by the end, he does such a great job of directing it to where you don't like someone at the beginning, but by the end, you actually have some emotional understanding on where they're coming from. And I think that that's something that is really interesting. And also the topic of self-destruction handled really well in this film. Barry Lyndon, it's a great film. Might not be for everyone because of the length and the pacing, but I adore both, and that's why, for me, I have Barry Lyndon as my number 57. Next up, my number 56, may as well rip my heart out now. My number 56 is Million Dollar Baby. This was a film that changed me as a viewer the first time I saw it. But not only that, every time I watch it, I feel the same way. The third act really challenges me. And I think that a film that challenges someone is something that I treasure. I really do. What I also love about this film is that not only is it challenging, but it also does a great job of subverting your expectations. No spoilers in case you haven't seen the film, but you think it's going to go down a certain way, and it doesn't at all. It goes a completely different direction. That direction makes sense. It's something that challenges you. It ties in the themes and messages in a way that works quite well. And this is also a film that it's very well acted. It's got incredible cinematography, a score that is simple but effective, and an ending that I think is incredible. It's ambiguous, sure, but it also is something that I think that if you look into, it really isn't. It's a great film. I love Million Dollar Baby, and I will defend it to the end. I can see why it won Best Picture, deservingly so. And yeah, why it's my number 56. Next up, my number 55, we have another film that changed me forever. My number 55 is Prisoners. So yeah, another Denis Villeneuve film, same director did Blade Runner 2049. Prisoners is what introduced me to his work. I think that Prisoners is an incredible mystery, but not only that, I think that it also is an incredible thriller, an incredible drama, and it also takes place in PA, which is where I'm from. So seeing the depiction of it, I thought was really, really done well. But also not only that, I think that this film is very relatable to pretty much anyone. You can't help but really get on board with the lead character, Hugh Jackman's character. You understand his perspective, but at the same time, with understanding his perspective, you also understand the detective's perspective played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And you see all these different perspectives, and you understand where they're all coming from. But at the same time, this film plunges you into the morally gray world that we live in. And I think that this film does a great job of that. And by the end of me first watching it, I was changed. And every time I watch this film, I find myself loving it more and more, which is something that isn't easy, but this film is able to pull off. I love Prisoners, and yeah, that's why it's my number 55. And next up, we have the ultimate Father's Day film. We have my number 54, which is Eraserhead. So Eraserhead is an incredible film. One that I will never forget the first time I saw it because I had no clue what I had just seen. I hadn't, but I come back to this film from time to time, and I find myself more and more thinking that I understand this film, whilst at the same time going into it each time knowing that I'm never actually going to fully understand this film. But it's a puzzle that is a Rorschach test where it says a lot about each viewer that watches it. And I think that's something that I really appreciate. And also just the fact that each viewing is going to bring about a different experience. But every viewing that I've had, I find myself loving it more and more, even though, again, there are many, many things that I'll never understand about this film. But holy cow, what a film. Black and white cinematography is outstanding. The directing by Lynch is great. Lead performance is great. And I also just think that if you want a film for a film night that you know is going to be challenging to everyone that you're going to show it to, I highly recommend watching Eraserhead. Also, if you want to watch a film on Father's Day, great film. Great film to watch. But yeah, Eraserhead is my number 54. Next up, my number 53, we have Jaws. I love Jaws. I really do. And Jaws is a film that's interestingly enough where when I first saw it, I think I was, freshman year of high school or maybe sophomore. But either way, I thought it was just all right. But then I watched it in my plant animal science class, and I loved it. But here's the thing. I've loved it each time more and more with each viewing. And the last couple times is when it really clicked that it's a masterpiece. It does such a great job of building suspense. It does such a great job of having it where the shark's not really in it that much, which is why it's all the more impactful when the shark does appear. It's like, oh, wow, it's really, really well done. I also love Spielberg's directing. Spielberg's directing is quite strong. He does such a great job of building these characters, having a strong sense of where to put the camera. John Williams' score is great. Love these characters. They're very well developed, fleshed out to the max. And also, the ending, it's funny because the first time I saw the ending, I wasn't a big fan of it. But now I think the ending is just fantastic, especially from a character standpoint. Just overall, a very, very well done blockbuster. And yeah, that's why it is my number 53. Next up, my number 52, we're back to the trademark Chad Sad movies. My number 52 is Unforgiven. So look, I have Unforgiven, as you can see, higher up than Million Dollar Baby, but just know that it's hard for me to choose which Clint Eastwood film I like more, Unforgiven or Million Dollar Baby. But what I will say is this. I think Unforgiven I like a tad more because, yes, it does ask a lot of morally challenging questions, similar to Million Dollar Baby. But I think what Unforgiven does is something a bit more, where for me as a viewer, I grew up watching Westerns, old school Westerns, like pre-60s Westerns, the ones that glamorized, beloved all the heroes, especially the main gunslinger. So to watch Unforgiven for the first time almost a decade ago and then just rewatching it over the years, it just is something that I've grown to appreciate more and more for just doing such a great job of deconstructing a whole genre and doing so in a way that just feels so, so raw. This is Clint Eastwood, the same individual that became famous off Westerns, and he is putting this genre under the microscope and saying, this is what's wrong with it, this is what could be right about it, and this is also the truth of it. And I think that I give Clint Eastwood huge props for it. But not only that, he's directing this and acting in this, and he's doing a great job, but he's also surrounded by incredibly talented individuals both behind and in front of the camera. I mean, Morgan Freeman gives a great performance. Gene Hackman gives a great performance. I think that this is a film that, if you've been sleeping on, I would highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the Western genre, because this critiques the genre in a way that works really, really well. And yeah, that's why it's my number 52. Next up, my number 51. Y'all can call me a Christopher Nolan fanboy all you want. I don't care. My number 51 is The Prestige. The Prestige is an incredible film. It's one of those films that when I first saw, it changed me. Like, this was one of those examples of a film that I got out from the library on DVD like over a decade ago. And I saw it and I finished it at like 2 or 3 a.m. and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So much so that the very next day I decided to rewatch it. And I've seen it many more times since then. But it's one of those things where a decade plus later, and I still find myself loving this film, even more so now. I really do appreciate all that Nolan did for this film. I love the sound mixing. I absolutely love the performances. I think also the themes are just so enriching. And I also love the nonlinear storytelling. Christopher Nolan did such a great job with this film. I know a lot of people best know him for the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception, but if you really do want to check out his better films, I already have Memento, obviously, in my top 50, but if you haven't seen Memento and you haven't seen Prestige, I would highly recommend you watch those two films, because in my opinion, those are his two best films. Yes, I love The Prestige, and I love Memento more than The Dark Knight. There, I said it. But yeah, that's why it's my number 51. Great, great film. But yeah, guys, that is my number 51 to 75. Let me know your guys' thoughts on your ranking down below. I'm very curious to hear it. And also, be on the lookout, as I mentioned, for my number 76 to 100. That will be coming out soon. And guys, as always, I really do appreciate you guys watching. You guys are the best in terms of support. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me down Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.